All right, let's get into it. Today, we're exploring a really fascinating and honestly, a pretty unsettling idea. It's called strategic sabotage, and it's this concept where a system failing isn't just an accident, it's the entire goal.
It's a question I'm sure we've all asked ourselves at some point. You see this brilliant new idea, or a leader who could change everything, or some game-changing new tech, and you watch it just get swallowed up and eventually fail inside some big, clunky structure. Why does that seem to happen over and over again? Well, let's dig into a theory that flips the usual explanation completely on its head.
So to really get this, we first have to talk about the heroes of our story, you could say. These are the forces of change, the things with the real power to actually push us forward.
We're going to call these impactful entities. And look, we're not talking about small adjustments here. We're talking about fundamental, ground-shaking shifts. Think about a radical scientific theory that completely changes how we see the universe, or a social movement that reshapes an entire culture, or, a piece of technology that just blows an industry wide open.
And that's really the key. These things aren't just a flash in the pan. They have their own momentum, their own energy. They can create change that lasts and even builds on itself. And because of that, their very existence is a threat to the way things are. So, what happens when they go head-to-head with the old guard?
So, what is this wall that these forces of change keep running into? Well, they run into the system itself, what we're going to call the rigid framework. And at first, it just looks like a simple, stubborn obstacle.
The framework is basically the rule book that runs the whole show. This could be a country's entire political system, the super strict hierarchy in a big company, or even just a really dogmatic ideology. It's the box that everything and everyone is supposed to neatly fit inside.
Now, the usual story we tell ourselves for why good ideas die is that the framework is just, well, it's too old, it's too slow, it's too rigid. It sees this amazing, innovative new thing, and because it doesn't tick the right boxes or follow the old rules, it gets kicked to the curb. Not because it's a bad idea, but just because it doesn't fit in the box.
So in this version of the story, when the whole system finally collapses under its own weight, we see it as this sad, unfortunate accident, a real tragedy. The system just couldn't change with the times, and all those good ideas that were trapped inside went down with the ship. But what if that's not what's really going on?
And this is where it gets really wild. What if the collapse wasn't an accident? What if the failure was intentional? What if it's a feature, not a bug?
And that leads us to much darker, more sinister strategy. One where the framework isn't just a flawed system, it's a weapon.
Okay, so check this out. This is the difference. On the left, you've got the rigid framework, where the system fails by accident. But on the right, you have strategic sabotage. And here, the framework is a trap, built on purpose. Its failure isn't the problem. The failure is the goal, because it's designed to take down and discredit whatever powerful idea is trapped inside with it.
So you see the shift? The framework is no longer just a broken filter. It becomes a purpose-built cage. It's designed to look appealing, to attract these powerful, world-changing entities, get them inside, and then neutralize them. Not by fighting them head-on, but by using deception.
So how in the world does this actually work? Well, it turns out there's a kind of playbook for it, a very deliberate step-by-step process.
Let's walk through it. Step 1. You lure the entity in. You make your system look like the only legitimate place for this great new idea to succeed. Step 2. Once it's in, you tie it up in red tape. Use bureaucracy, endless rules, anything to choke its growth and limit its reach. Step 3, and this is the genius evil part, you engineer the framework's collapse. You make it fail, and you make it fail in a big public way. And finally, step 4, discredit. The amazing idea is now forever linked to the failure. It's that terrible idea from that corrupt, broken system.
This is a perfect way to picture it. Imagine a revolutionary idea for, say, healthcare reform. It gets adopted by a government agency that is deliberately designed to be inefficient and corrupt. When that agency inevitably crashes and burns, nobody says, wow, that agency was built to fail. No, the story becomes, see, that healthcare idea was a disaster from the start.
It's really a form of psychological warfare. You don't have to debate the idea directly. That's hard, and you might lose. Instead, you just poison the well. You make the idea toxic by tying it to a massive failure. You destroy its reputation, maybe for a whole generation.
So, okay, why is this so important to get? I mean, what does knowing about this pattern actually change for us?
Well, once you see this playbook, you get a whole new lens to look at the world through. It helps you look past the easy answer, which is always just, oh, they're incompetent. It lets you spot what might be deliberate, systemic manipulation. It makes you ask that critical question, who benefits from this thing failing? And maybe most importantly, it helps you realize that what looks like a total disaster might actually be a wild success for the people who planned it that way.
When you really boil it all down, that's the difference. It's a huge shift in perspective. It's the difference between seeing a system that accidentally breaks down and seeing a system that was masterfully built to break, all to take something valuable down with it.
And so that's the thought I want to leave you with. This whole pattern, this idea of building cages that are designed to fail, this isn't just some abstract theory. It's a real tactic. So now that you know the playbook, where are you going to see it next? In politics? In business? In our big social debates? Where is it hiding in plain sight?